Giannis Antetokounmpo has been one of the absolute best players in the modern NBA. His excellence has led to a lot of success, and even Shaq recognized his dominance.
Oh, Shaq couldn't play today. But you're not paying attention. I am playing today. My name is Greek Freak.
So today we're putting Shaq in Giannis' shoes to see if he can truly become the Greek Freak. But in order to live up to that title, Shaq would need to be on his A game, because Giannis has earned 1 ring, 2 MVPs, and a Defensive Player of the Year in 10 years, so Shaq's hands will be full trying to match it. Luckily, with his career starting in 2013, he'd have tons of touches because his team was horrible.
Throws it, intercepted. Knight, 2 seconds, 1 second. Oh, he missed it at the horn.
With Brandon Knight being his best teammate, the ball was constantly in Shaq's hands. He was the only player worth getting any touches, and his stats were benefiting from it. As a rookie, he averaged 22.4 points per game and was snagging 11.1 boards a night to lead all rooks. Quickly, his play style was being acclimated to the modern era of basketball, and it was a seamless fit. His dominance wasn't going unnoticed, and he would be doing something that Giannis couldn't. He was winning the Rookie of the Year honors. But unfortunately, his team didn't have the same success. A failed season mostly because of his teammates, of course, but he did better than Giannis, who only got 15 wins in his rookie year. And even though in 2015 his team didn't get any better at all, Shaq was certainly getting better himself by elevating his stats even further than the season before. It was clear just how great O'Neal would be in the current NBA, and his accolades were continuing to grow, because for the 2nd year in a row, he would be making an All-Star appearance, which was the first for any Bucks player over the past decade. After that All-Star break, Shaq was continuing to amaze the world. He was making the playoffs and forming an underdog story. Unfortunately, though, his first playoff opponent was a very stacked Cleveland team. With the odds against him, Shaq still wasn't letting up. The Cavaliers' only center was Timothy Mozgov, so anything was possible here for the Bucks. His opening playoff series showed astonishing levels of play, like many had expected. It looked like he was an unstoppable force and maybe could shock the world by winning the series, but at the end of the day, he was still facing LeBron. King James in his prime was by no means losing to a team led by a 2nd-year player. The play from Shaq was intimidating and could certainly pose a threat, but it wouldn't be this year. One after another, LeBron was winning his team games until it was all over in a sweep of the Bucks. Shaq, by no surprise, would be devastated, and the pain wasn't stopping there. O'Neal was continuing to be one of the best players in the league, but his team was continuing to be the opposite. Milwaukee's management was struggling to put any good players around Shaq. Adding guys like the undersized guard Eric Bledsoe and Tony Snell just weren't going to get it done. In a conference with LeBron dominating, adding this guy is just disrespectful. Shaq was still keeping the Bucks relevant, but the question was, for how long? There were murmurs rising on if he'd leave Milwaukee in free agency, and it's no wonder why. Over the next 3 seasons in a row, year after year, they were falling short in the postseason. In 2016, he was running into the Raptors, led by DeMar, and was losing in round 1 for the 2nd straight year. In 2017, Shaq finally won a playoff series against the Pacers, but the following round, Carmelo Anthony was ready to hold Shaq yet again as he lost in round 2. Finally, in the 2018 playoffs, DeMar was responsible for bouncing Shaq yet again to cap off a failed stretch for the Bucks. Despite the team failing horribly, Shaq was still deciding to stick with his group and committed to his own personal growth to compensate for the team's shortcomings. And his growth was happening incredibly fast. As we already know, the 2017 postseason failed in round 2, but the regular season was something special. This year, Shaq was making massive strides as he was establishing himself as the best big man in the NBA. Nobody had any hopes of stopping him, and regardless of the defensive game plans, he was going to get his. This great play would be the one bright spot of the last few seasons, and now he'd be crowned as the MVP of the NBA for all of his efforts. Not only is he being rewarded an MVP, he's getting Defensive Player of the Year. So while his team is not making much progress in the playoffs, Shaq's at least making a lot of progress on Giannis's legacy, and things are about to get a lot easier for him as well. Milwaukee was finally bringing in Shaq some help. Brook Lopez was a stretch big option who recently developed great shooting and solid defense. They also added Nikola Mirotic, who was another great veteran shooting option. With the added spacing, Shaq had more time to operate down low, and that led to the Bucks' best record in ages. Come the postseason, Shaq was pulverized in the competition in the first 2 rounds. To kick things off, he was punishing Miami and their young roster with no issues at all to finish the sweep. Moving forward, he was up against the Celtics and was doing nothing short of embarrassing their franchise on both ends of the court. While this series was close in the matchup with the Heat, it was still O'Neal in full control of the series. The fans were super excited for his success as he was advancing to his first ever conference finals. Those conference finals would be taking place in Toronto versus the Raptors and Kawhi. And while Kawhi was at his peak playing great, he just came off a close 7-game series against the Sixers. The fatigue was apparent for the Raptors, and Shaq was gonna take advantage. Clearly nothing was stopping the Diesel in his pursuit of his first finals trip. Everyone expected this to be a closer series, but it mimicked much of what we saw in the first 2 rounds. It was all Shaq all series. He was pushing past Toronto after 6 and was finally being crowned champion of his conference and earned a trip to the finals. And this trip to the finals was huge for Shaq because this season he added another MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, which leaves him only 1 ring shy of already matching Giannis' legacy, but it wouldn't be easy because Steph Curry and the Warriors would be in the way. Not only that, but also he had Kevin freaking Durant with him and was rounded out by his splash brother, one of the best shooters in the league, Klay Thompson. The only bright side is much of the responsibility would still fall on Steph, while those guys dealt with some injuries. For Shaq to win here, he'd have to be playing his best basketball, and things could actually go in his favor thanks to Golden State missing some guys. First though, Steph's excellence was shining as bright as ever while taking over the game, and it was enough to will his team to 2 wins while protecting his home court. This meant Shaq needed to start fighting back before things ended up out of hand. Back in Milwaukee, the tide of the series would start to change. The Warriors' small ball lineup had a massive disadvantage against the big ball lineup of Lopez and Shaq combined. This advantage for the Bucks was enough to give Shaq the upper hand at home to tie the series right back up. Moving on to a pivotal game 5, the stakes were huge. Whoever wins here likely wins the series, and whoever lasts in the final moments would have a 3-2 lead. This is a massive game 5. If Shaq wins here, he's going to be up 3-2 in the series. He's going to have a good chance at winning his first championship. The Warriors down by 4, but anything's possible with Steph with just under a minute left. Steph had open space for a 3, passed it down low to Boogie. Shaq's defense, the 2-time Defensive Player of the Year. They are hack a Shaq, though that could pay off. They weren't in the bonus yet, so they send this guy to the free throw line. I'm not even actually sure who this is. I think it's a 2K creative player, but I guess he's clutch because he hits both. The Warriors are not going to use a timeout here. They're down by 6 with 30 seconds. Steph's going to have to do something incredible here if they want to win this game. He needs a screen, he needs some space, and he needs to shoot a 3 and fast. Draymond, send him a screen. Steph trying to operate. He's pulling up. I don't like that shot, man. This one's going to be over. Wow. Following that huge win on the road, now back in Milwaukee, things were up for grabs for Shaq. Of course, people will question if winning a ring here counts with KD and Thompson being out, but respect it or not, it was going to be going into the history books. Already, Shaq was winning a ring versus the Warriors dynasty, and now he officially has surpassed Giannis' legacy with an extra Defensive Player of the Year. Crazy numbers for Shaq in the finals, 32.5 points per game, 13.5 rebounds, 3 blocks a night, and he has already officially passed Giannis in their legacies. And with 5 seasons left in this career swap, I guess we're just gonna have to see how much further than Giannis can Shaq go. And right away the very next year, he found himself back in the playoffs again, making more advances past Giannis. Once more, he was awarded with both the MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, and by this point, the award selection just didn't even seem fair. Shaq kept winning them every season, but there isn't much you can do about it because his level of play warranted it, and it was showing more than ever before in the playoffs as he'd be making the finals again. However, this year's finals would be far more difficult, with LA having the size to match up with Milwaukee. Even with Anthony Davis smothering Shaq, he was still dominating the game. AD would slow him down far more than any other matchup has, but there was no way they'd shut Shaq down completely. But Davis didn't have to shut him down completely. If you remember back to Shaq's early playoff days, he was bounced by LeBron in his debut. And now in the modern day, here in the finals, with AD slowing O'Neal down slightly, it was enough leeway to give LeBron the edge. Just like he had done years ago, LeBron was on a tear against the Bucks and would ultimately be the bane of Shaq's possible repeat. The defeat may have been harsh for O'Neal, but the next season was another chance. Mostly because the Bucks were adding Drew Holiday to the mix. He and Shaq together formed the best defense in the entire league. When they got to the playoffs, this was a huge factor and allowed them to easily run straight back to the finals. And this year's finals was taking place in Memphis against the Grizzlies. Unfortunately for Memphis, their team was very, very young and inexperienced. It was something to be proud of to make it this far, but with the Bucks making the finals for the 3rd year in a row, their superior experience would be blatantly obvious. Shaq was way too much for the Grizzlies to overcome, and just like Giannis did in 2021, O'Neal was leading the Bucks to a ring. Now we're seeing an even wider gap between Shaq and Giannis, but our stars' luck may be running short. The next 2 seasons in a row, Shaq and Milwaukee were running into Boston in the playoffs, and while they would put up good fights, somehow things just wouldn't work out for them, and they'd lose to the Celtics in 22 and 23. To be quite honest, I don't know how the Celtics keep beating the Bucks. They don't have a great big man other than old ass Al Horford, so I don't know why Shaq's not dominating, but I guess they're losing to the Celtics those 2 years. But coming into 2024, this season that we're living in real life, Shaq's getting some serious help. As we all know, Damian Lillard will be moved to the Milwaukee Bucks this season, and it was certainly a special fit alongside Shaq. Their pick and rolls were nearly unstoppable, and it made this team favorites to win it all. Dame was by far the best talent Shaq has played with to date, and they were poised for a deep playoff run. They'd find themselves back to the Eastern Conference Finals yet again, where this time they were facing the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cavs, though, may be the absolute worst matchup for Shaq, thanks to guys like Jared Allen and Evan Mobley running the paint. Shaq and Dame were performing well, but the rest of the team's effort and defense seemed to be lacking. It was reminiscent of the finals versus the Lakers, where the bigs were slowing down Shaq enough that the other players' offense was pushing their team ahead. Somehow, someway, Shaq and Dame found themselves down 3-2, and hopes were low with their season on the line. Down by 5 with 48 seconds left, unless the Bucks have a miracle in them, I think that Shaq's season is unfortunately about to be over. Dame is wasting a lot of time on the clock. He's making his move now. He's driving in. Evan Mobley, that's a really tough floater. He gets it to go to the three-point game. One stop, they might play the foul game because 2K AI is just ridiculous. If you get one stop, then you have a chance. It doesn't look like they're playing the foul game. There is a full court press, though. There is Garland. Damian Lillard on him. If you get a stop here, you have a chance, but you have to get a defensive stop. I think that was an illegal screen. Jared Allen, and he fouls out. Here it is. What a mistake by Jared Allen to shove his shoulder like that. The Bucks actually have a chance. You're down by 3 here, 26 seconds. It's gotta be Dame time, right? No way you go for the 2. Lillard's gotta tie this game up. He has the ball now. I want to see him and Shaq in a pick and roll. That's the only thing that makes sense. There it is. Shaq, the screen. Lillard, he drives and draws the foul. He had an open midi. Lillard hit both his free throws. They ended up fouling Garland. I don't know how I feel about this. No timeouts left. If Garland hits both of these, I imagine he will. Fantastic free throw shooter. The Bucks are gonna have 15 seconds to get off a 3 to tie this game. I don't think you can go for a 2 at this point. Garland misses. Maybe you can go for a 2. Chris Middleton has the ball now. It's got to be Dame. It's got to be Shaq. Dame, he was low-key kind of open for a 3 there. Chris Middleton has a mismatch down low. No way. Chris Middleton in a moment like this, his lay is good. Chris Middleton in a moment like this. I don't know what it is with 2K24, but these guys make like every clutch shot. Cleveland coming out of a timeout. Can they secure the win? Can they seal the deal? Nowhere to go. Garland from fucking half court. It's over. Going to OT. And while regulation was exciting, overtime has been a blowout. The Cleveland Cavaliers, they're taking it. They're going home with it. I can't believe it. I really thought Shaq and Dame was a guaranteed ring to close this one out, but it wasn't. Cleveland was better. Despite falling short in the final year, Shaq still had a very successful tenure in Giannis' shoes as he surpassed his legacy. But what if I gave Tatum another all-time greats legacy? Find out how he would do by clicking this video next.